Hello, everyone. I think we're live on Facebook. I'm here with Stephanie McBride, and just so anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Steve with Your Oil Tools. I got the great opportunity to talk to Stephanie today and interview her and go through some of the questions that some of you might have about pregnancy and essential oils, and then different things. So to get started, I want to let everybody know this is being recorded live, so we are actually live right now. So if there's lag time or issues, or if we say something silly that we shouldn't, then just forgive us. Anyways,
disclaimer.
A little disclaimer ahead. This is not approved by the FDA. So
right.
With that being said, Stephanie, I'd love you to kind of tell everybody a little bit about you and about your background.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you setting all this up. Hi, everybody. So I'm Stephanie McBride, and for over half my life now, I have been working with plant medicine and studying about clinical herbology. I'm a certified clinical herbalist, also a functional nutritionist and an aromatherapist. And I also have some training in energetic types of healing like craniosacral therapy, and I'm a Reiki master teacher. So just very much interested in wellness and lifting levels of vitality during life, especially during pregnancy. I've had the experience of working in a wellness clinic where we focus on women's health and children's health, and that did help me to kind of hone in my interests in herbology and nutrition and essential oils to maternity and infant care and wellness in general during that whole childbearing year. And I also have conducted and organized research studies on essential oils. I have a lot of postgraduate science work behind me. I was going to go to medical school at one point, but decided I'd rather work with wellness than with disease. So yeah, basically just educate and help others learn how to apply essential oils and adapt use during maternity and beyond.
Well, that's a great segue, Stephanie, into my first question. So some of these questions were compiled by us internally, and a few are questions that we've asked our customers. So it makes it a little bit more broad for you to know where these questions are coming from. So One of the questions is that obviously is asked a lot, I'm sure, is can you tell me why essential oils are so beneficial during pregnancy?
I do get asked this question a lot, and I think I have a different answer every time I'm asked because there's so many different reasons for that. But I think one of the main reasons why I started using essential oils more when I was working with clients individually and recommending them more than other things like teas and tinctures and vitamins and dietary changes is because they're so palliative and easy to use. And during pregnancy, a lot of people feel overwhelmed. They have lower energy levels and, just a lot going on. So I think especially during that time of life, it's really nice to take something out of your purse that can help with so many of the discomforts that we have during pregnancy. And those include things like fatigue, joint pain, nausea, indigestion, heartburn, constipation. People get headaches during pregnancy. There's so many pesky discomforts that happen. And once you learn how to use them and you learn how to use them really safely, then it's just a matter of pulling it out of your purse. And within less than a minute, within seconds, sometimes people get a lot of benefit and support from this. So it's just such an easy, great thing to do. And that doesn't mean that they're not more than just palliative. They actually have amazing benefits. Like if they're in your everyday life, they really lift your level of vitality and help with gentle detoxification and mental clarity and so many other things. And then, of course, there's uses during labor that are just phenomenal and for nursing and postpartum issues as well.
So now I'm a guy, obviously. I don't have to worry about the pregnancy side of things. So being that my wife's a doula, I do understand a little bit of this. But for the people that might not understand, I'd love for you to kind of give an example of when you should start using essential oils in pregnancy. Maybe give us a little example of that.
Sure. Well, you can actually start at any time. If you know ahead of time that you're going to be trying for a baby, then they're great during fertility as well. I'm actually working on materials and research on the essential oils during during fertility, and trying to conceive time as well. But really they're safe throughout all of pregnancy and into postpartum. There are a few things you need to know to adapt use during those times, but you can include them anytime.
Okay. So with that being said, so is there a reason to not use essential oils during pregnancy? Is there oils not to use or things like that you can tell us?
Well, there are, I guess, one thing I want to reiterate is that I work with wellness. I do also work with training midwives and nurse midwives and people that are healthcare professionals. But I think it's really standard if you have a medical condition or an abnormal pregnancy, then you should seek medical recommendations as well as like work individually with an aromatherapist. So I guess within the realm of general wellness, normal pregnancies, normal conditions, it's really, safe throughout everything. There are certain oils that I wouldn't recommend, like oregano, for example, rosemary. There are oils like clove and cinnamon that can increase circulation. And when you have almost double the blood volume, it's not necessarily ideal to do that. A lot of women are anemic as well. So we don't really want to ramp up that system. I think that it's important also, like when you think of infant care with essential oils, I like to suggest that people use them as needed because it's so important for babies to smell their parents and their environment too. So I get that question a lot. Is there a time when you shouldn't use essential oils for infant care? And I'd say if you have one of those really handy diffusers that are like more intelligent than others that go off in spurts, they're not constantly running, that's definitely better, not just for their how well they work, but also for babies to get a little break in between. But I don't worry about diffusing essential oils around infants unless it's just constant, or if you're in a bathroom and using them in the shower. Like I used to shower with my babies in their bouncy chair outside the shower with the door closed and it would get steamy in there. So using essential oils in that kind of setting can be too much or inappropriate.
Okay. So now I got a question with, so essential oils are one thing, but then carrier oils, I know that's a topic of conversation. Actually, a lot of people ask us, is there carrier oils that you shouldn't use? Just like the essential oils, is there anything out there that you would say, stay away from that carrier oil for pregnancy?
No, unless you have a nut or seed allergic reaction, there really aren't any precautions there. Most people go for fractionated coconut oil because it's medium chain fatty acids. They absorb really nicely into the skin. It's a neutral smelling oil. I like it a lot. I use it for convenience, but I'm getting really into cacao lately. There's so many other fun kinds of carriers to try. Like I just did this big like chocolate making webinar thing with cacao, and I kept a lot of it, and I've just been making like homemade chapsticks for Christmas and doing a lot with cacao. So there are just so many wonderful carrier oils that it's kind of fun to play around with different ones for different things. And I do in my book and also my ECourse talk about like what some of the different uses are for the different types of carrier, because they're all a little different.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that it sounds like your favorite would be fractionated coconut oil. Is that what you'd say for carrier oil?
Well, I'd say that's the most convenient and it's kind of my go-to recommendation. But at the moment, my favorite's cacao. Okay. At other times, I have different favorites. Like I got really into sweet almond oil for a while. Shea butter is incredible. But if you're just getting started in essential oils and you don't really like to make things in your kitchen, then you can just stick with fractionated coconut oil and it's absolutely perfect. And it's, it has a lot of benefits, nutritional benefits and benefits for your skin as well.
So being on that same idea with the fact that you're saying so much about the carrier oils, how they're so beneficial, is there anything that you could say about essential oils or that you would tell somebody basically about them, why they're so good, just as a general, let's say, rule?
So not just during pregnancy, but in general?
Yeah, I would say that.
Well, I think that you're bringing in the essence of the plant. And as I said, I have a background in herbology, clinical herbology. And so the study of plants, and there's so many wonderful things about plants for nutrition and for general health, vitality, but the essential oil part of it is the very essence. And it's really special because essential oils are fats or lipids, and molecularly they're very small. So this gives them a very distinct attribute, which is that they can cross through biological barriers really easily. And that includes the skin, but also when you inhale it as a vapor, it goes through the nose or the lungs into the olfactory nerves, the olfactory bulb, into the limbic structure. And there it has direct impacts on the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands, which affect the autonomic nervous system and hormone balance, or it can go through the cerebral cortex and affect the hippocampus, memory, and emotions. I mean, it's pretty profound just inhaling essential oil, what that can do for your mood, emotions, neurotransmitters, balance, like all these incredible bodily functions. And then you have a whole nother layer when you apply them topically as well, because they, like I said, they're lipids, they pass through, they can cross through cell membranes, they can cross through into breast milk, they can cross through the placenta, through the blood-brain barrier. So that's why it's so important to use really high quality essential oils during pregnancy as well. But it does make them very potent and fast acting and effective for so many different things.
So I mean, safety, good, talking about all the ways that essential oils are used. Safety is always a conversation, that's the topic. And I know in your book, you do definitely have a lot of it, and a lot of the materials that we carry talk about safety. So is the question that was asked, is there too much essential oils to use during pregnancy? I mean, again, you've got ratios and stuff, but that's the question, is there too much?
Well, there is too much of the wrong kind of oil. For example, there's some oils that are stimulating to the uterus, such as myrrh, rose, jasmine, and especially Cary Sage. So, certainly using, if you just use those in passing or someone's diffusing them, I don't imagine there'd be a big impact. But if you have, for example, baby in breech position, you don't want to stimulate the uterus, and if you're not ready to start labor, you don't want to stimulate the uterus. So there's certain oils that, yes, I would say, have a little bit of background knowledge. It's pretty basic. I mean, you could get 5 oils that are safe entirely throughout pregnancy, and you could actually use them every day. These oils, like I do list 17 oils in my book and tell you exactly how to use them, for example. So, I mean, it's easy to find 5 oils that you bring into your pregnancy and can use as much as you want. As far as like concerns of toxicity, that's not really an issue. It's more to do with skin sensitivity. During pregnancy, women are more sensitive. Some women aren't. Some women use essential oils just like they always did before pregnancy, and they don't have adverse skin reactions. But it is a time where, you maybe used essential oils for 10 years and applied them neat to your skin, and then suddenly you're pregnant and you can't do that anymore. And so it's good to start with diluting the oils, and try them out on your skin. And I basically say, here's the starting dilution, which is 1 drop per teaspoon for massage during pregnancy. And if that works fine for you and you don't have a reaction and you want to use more, go for it. It's just that you might find that your body's changed a bit during pregnancy. True also for the photosensitizing oils, like the citrus rind oils, especially bergamot. When we're pregnant, we have higher levels of the melanocytic hormone. And so we're more sensitive to the sensitizing oils and to the sun also. So it's just good to adapt use a little bit because of things like that.
Yeah, so that actually brings me to an interesting point. My wife, she's a doula, so she uses oils, but she uses it on nasal inhalers to be able to give it to the moms, because a lot of hospitals don't allow the oils to be brought in too much, different things like that. So with that being said, what's your favorite oil? What and why?
Peppermint, definitely peppermint. Well, I guess this is a really personal question because peppermint has saved my life so many times. I have had issues with blood sugar balance pretty much my whole life, even like in high school, being told I had low blood sugar. And so I've had to be careful with my diet, but also I've just had periods, I think when my kids were all really young, they're teens now, but when I was picking them up in the afternoon, I'd have this huge dip in energy. And just like walking down, pre-COVID times, walking down the hall of a school, like as much as I love kids, it was just loud and kids everywhere. And like I would just have that happened at the time of day when I had my big dip in energy. And peppermint, when I started using peppermint before I went into the school, and I just literally like inhaled a drop out of my hands, I just felt grounded and stable. It wakes you up, it gives you energy. It helps with mental clarity and focus. And I do believe it helps to balance blood sugar. It will stop me. I was eating a cookie every day, which I'm such a non-sugar person now, but back when this was happening, I would have to have some sugar to just like stabilize my blood sugar. And I replaced sugar with peppermint essential oil. And I love it for so many things. It also clears the sinuses. I used it when I've had a little allergic reaction to something, and it does it all. It clears the sinuses, it brings clarity, it stops with stomach pain. It's just a great oil. And it's great during pregnancy. And I talk about this often in my webinars. So if you see me talk, you may have heard me say this, but if you look at the peppermint plant, it has, or all mint family plants have square stems, and then they have opposite leaves like that are perpendicular as they go up the stem. And so they have this really balanced structure, but yet like your cat can walk through them, or it can rain hard and they can kind of fall down, but then they come back up. So the way I look at that is that they're very adaptive. They're flexible, they flow with things, but they're just stable and grounded. And I think that's such a great attribute to bring into pregnancy. I mean, into any time in life. You know, like I said, I needed it more when my kids were young, but I didn't know about the oils when I was pregnant. So that's why the original title for my book was Hindsights for Maternal Wellness, because it was all about, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known this, you know, and now I just have to share it with people because it's so important to know during pregnancy.
Okay, so bringing up, you brought up your book. Why did you write the book? What was the reason? I know you said hindsights, but could you give me a little bit more on that?
Well, I think, I mean, we learn from our personal experiences, and I had a very difficult postpartum with my first baby, and I learned a ton from it. And throughout the hardest time during it, I was like, I'm going to use this to help people someday. Like that was what got me through the day when I was having a hard time, is someday this really horrible, difficult experience is going to help others. So I've always had that intention. And as I learn more about the field of aromatherapy and natural medicine and pregnancy, I learned like, wow, I could have done so much to have saved myself from going through what I went through, and not have suffered so much. And essential oils would have been so helpful. And so I just always wanted to share this information with as many people as possible. And one day, and I didn't know exactly how I was going to do that. I mean, I've had my e-course for a number of years. I've written other booklets under the name Stephanie Pearson, and it's been really fun and a great way to do it. But when I just started thinking about how am I going to really help people with this and really share this. And I woke up one day from a dream and I just had this like epiphany, this like absolute moment of clarity. I had chills up my body and I just had the idea for the book. And it was basically like, tell my story, walk people through what it's like to be pregnant from like your first symptom on, and then like what's transition phase during labor. Like I didn't know any of this when I got pregnant, and I was reading all these pregnancy books. But so I basically told a pregnancy book through, you know, a little bit of my own story, but then also like, why is my body doing this? You know, what's going on physiologically? And then hindsights, which is like what would I have done if I had known how to bring essential oils in? And I love that part because I've seen so many people helped by these things like just over and over again. And I love that we have this tool bag to use during pregnancy. It's so important. It's just such a gift to give to yourself or someone else. So I just felt really inspired by the idea of how I was going to present it. And I hope people find it easy to use, because you can flip it open to a section and read about, you know, back pain or something, but you can also read it straight through and learn a lot about pregnancy, like, you know, from a perspective of not knowing anything at all, really.
Well, do you have a favorite chapter in the book or a specific section that you wrote that was really?
Well, I have a soft spot for the parts where my kids are in the story. So, you know, the postpartum section, I talk about nursing and how they all were like, my daughter was a nip and napper because she was like really tiny. So she just woke constantly and like ate tiny meals and fell asleep. And I also had like low milk supply during part of that. So, you know, I can bring in tips for what to do. But, and then my third child was a biter. It's just like, and I look back at it now and I laugh, but it was really hard, you know, and there are things you can do with essential oils, like, you know, sandalwood is a nice example to put into an ointment, you know, to help things like broken tissue, but there's just a lot you can do with the oils, but it was most fun for me to include my kids in the story.
So now you talked earlier too about your e-course and some of the other things that you have. What are some of the things that you know, I know you said and I know this personally, the e-course is, you know, you got two setups of it. You've got one for the individual and one is a certification. So can you give me a little bit of detail about what those look like? And again, like more about those e-courses.
Right. It's actually the same e-course. However, if you are going for continuing education credits and you're a licensed birth professional in the United States, or if you, like a lot of other people like naturopaths have been able to use these credentials, even though they're through ACNM, which is an accreditation for nurse midwives, and MEEK for lay midwives or general practice midwives. I think that you know, I do have a lot of, I guess, clinical little tidbits in the e-course, but I I make sure to state, like, if this is in your realm of practice, use this. For example, I guess I say for, let's see, postpartum bleeding, for example, is a medical condition. So if you are not a licensed medical practitioner, like, don't even be paying attention to this section. However, if medical procedures are happening by your practitioner, and even if you are a practitioner, like, I don't say grab the cypress essential oil, I say follow medical protocol. However, if you're standing there with a bottle of cypress and everyone else is getting the emergency procedures together, there is no harm at all in putting cypress on the abdomen to help with something like that. So I like to have people have this in their tool bag because, you know, it is kind of roots medicine. But yeah, the courses go into a lot, mostly general discomforts that arise and normal things that happen during pregnancy, you know, and I just have a few other tips in there. But I'm very careful to make sure people use this information appropriately. And I have, you know, I started out training birth professionals. So my background is on a more clinical, scientific kind of medicine level, but the ECourse is general enough for everybody to be able to follow it and take good advice from it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you another question that came to mind based on when you're talking.
Sure.
We talked about oils, and you know, I hear Cary Sage a lot.
Yeah.
And the oil Cary Sage used a lot. Could you give me a little bit of information about like Cary Sage? Let's just, you know, what that is and where, anything that you got on that?
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, first of all, it's the most sedative essential oil that we have. But what I was concerned about when I was pregnant, I'd heard Cary Sage speeds up labor. And I thought, oh no, you know, I had these really long, slow labors that caused me to have all the health problems later. But I was so afraid to use Cary Sage and put it in my birth tub. I did not use it at all during my pregnancy, even though it was absolutely the oil that I should have used. I didn't, because I heard speed up labor and I thought more pain, right? I had natural childbirth, I should add, and I chose to do that. But so what Cary Sage does that's so incredible is that it relaxes you while making your contractions more effective and more regular. So this is a really important point if you are concerned that it might, you know, pick up and make you actually more pain. It's actually essential oils have some really good research on pain reduction, including Cary Sage. And this happens for part because when you are tense, you have more pain, you have more experience, or, you know, you have more pain basically. But other essential oils like ginger, you know, that works on pain receptor sites in the brain. So they work with pain both for, you know, like calming you down, making your muscles relax so that you don't experience as much pain, and then also actually blocking pain receptor sites. But Cary Sage is a really good oil to have in a birth. Once your contractions and active labor are regular and effective, that is when I suggest that you discontinue the use of Cary Sage, because it is really strong. It mimics like Pitocin, the drug, a bit. So we actually don't want to have hypertonic contractions come on. So it's not one to just use every labor, you know, for as long as you want. It has a purpose, and that is to strengthen and regulate contractions while calming you down. Now, something you could bring in instead would be jasmine. Jasmine is also one of those really cool oils that is both relaxing and stimulating at the same time. That's really effective for labor. And it does have a more mild effect on stimulating the uterus, but it's not nearly as strong as Cary Sage, you know.
Well, it's good
and
to hear.
There's tons other you can bring in for pain, like black pepper and, you know, Siberian fir and lavender and geranium, and frankincense was, I think, the top one in a study they did on labor pain relief.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's great, because I mean, the reason I asked the question is because, you know, I hear that a lot, and it's one of those things that I just wanted to ask it because, you know, obviously we're doing this webinar now for information, but you can get so much more of your information from your book, from your ECourse, from the other avenues that you have. You know, I'm really grateful that we've had the opportunity to partner with you to be able to create this book, to be able to bring it to market. And, you know, we've launched it now. It's on Amazon. It's on youroiltools.com. It's you can get it everywhere. So, and I think we just, you know, it's on Oil Life now. We're launching it in different stores all over the country.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the exciting thing for me right now is to see how people are receptive to it and how they're getting there to the point where that, you know, it's a need. It's a definite need.
Right. I know people will love it. Like, and I've heard the people that have read it, they give me feedback, love it. I'm so excited to share it. And I'm really grateful for our partnership in getting it out there. And all this kind of came about, right when COVID started. So I like basically went home and started my garden, in my living room under my grow lights at that point. So, and kind of checked out, but now I'm like, I think people are getting back out there in the world, and, I'm hoping to talk more publicly. My Facebook group, Essential Oils for the Birth Kit, will have occasional live talks if you want to know more about this topic, or, and also communicate with other people who are interested in essential oils for pregnancy.
Yeah, and I mean, that brings me to a good point too. Anybody watching this video or that sees the replay, I'd love for them to post the comments on the Facebook page, because then who knows, maybe in the future we can come back and we can have a bigger conversation about some of the questions that these people have,
Sure. Yeah. I'm happy. There's so much more to say, like even with Cary Sage, it's like one of the best oils for postpartum as well. And like, I didn't even touch on that. There's just so much wealth.
So how much information on that is in your book? Is there a lot of that, or
Yeah, there's quite a bit. I mean, I have in the back, do I profile like 17 essential oils? And I talk about, there's about a page and a half on each one, but like Cary Sage comes up a lot in the book itself. So, I think what I did when I wrote it is I sat down and I brainstormed it. I thought of all the most important things I wanted to say about everything. And I made sure to include them without overcomplicating things, but I do have enough experience to say what I really need them to know about this oil for that. Like, for example, there's one essential oil that's good for like almost every single concern that nursing moms have. So, like to discover this myself and test it and be like, oh my gosh, everyone has to know this. Like, why don't people know what it is?
Yeah. So with that being said, our time is getting close to the end, but I wanted to, obviously thank you for spending your time and talk about, all these questions that we have, and then also the book. But, anybody that's watching this video right now has the opportunity. I'm doing my sales pitch now about the book. You can go right to youroiltools.com, and we have free shipping on Stephanie's book right now. So you can just buy the book with free shipping. We also, if you're an Amazon Prime member, go right on Amazon and you can get it right on Amazon with free shipping. So there's my plug. Thank you, Stephanie, very much for doing this for us. And we look forward to, some of these questions that people are going to ask, to be able to, do another one in the future.
Yeah. Right. Well, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks everyone who watched.